Thank you very much for your support, and thank you to my patrons for making this video possible. Enjoy the video, guys.
What a maneuver!
What's up, everybody? We're back with another A-list deck profile. This one goes out to Vartrax, good friend and supporter of the channel. They wanted a spicy Kirishima 3 list. I could think of nothing spicier than building a deck with no back alley haymaker. That's right. We focused on hardened Blitz for this build, and between back alley haymaker and rapid punches, I wanted to reduce my difficulty curve just a little bit, you know, checking that even though back alley is basically a 4 diff, it's sometimes not on turn 2, right? And this felt like a 50 card deck to me. As a 7-hander, it felt like it didn't necessarily want the game to go super long. You know, this is not a character that's going to accrue resources over you, one that's trying to trade a resource 1 for 1. So felt like a more compact deck would be better. And I didn't want any mid attack to really benefit off of the, you know, if your attack is partially, to really punish the opponent and make them guess. We decided to go for all high and low attack. So I thought that was kind of, I got the one of Hardened Frenzy in here just because we don't have Hardened Jab, that's a mid attack. We don't have ways to really recur it. But the way that people typically deal with it is partial blocking. They wall cling it or Faith Shield it or whatever, so I thought it'd be kind of neat to include. Also, we needed a low block, but it's one of the few non-punches. Other than that, most of the attacks do something if they're not blocked, or they do something if they are blocked, or they do something if they block. So all the other attacks are really filling their roles as quote-unquote not the stars and supporting the hardened Blitz. I think this one is really neat. I think that if I was going to make any changes or make the deck any bigger, brute strength, going to like a 4 of to really pump up hardened Blitz, probably the way to go. The one thing I did kind of struggle with is I don't have a great way to like play hardened Blitz. I'm not doing the super ramp thing, right? You know, hardened uppercut is sacking me 2 foundations. They better be committed. Hardened barrage is unflipping 1, but it's not rebuilding me. I'm playing Kirishima 3 zone attack that will, you know, rebuild him a foundation. So this is an Earthless that's basically doing no ramp for the sake of statistics, you know, for the sake of speed and damage. We are not focusing on the ramp, and I think that's smart because Kirishima 3 himself is kind of anti-ramp, right? And you can try to compensate for that by ramping. That's a completely valid strategy. But I think that focusing on making your attack a pain in the ass to deal with is the one thing I haven't seen Kirishima 3 decks do yet. And so you get into like this sort of mid-rangey plotting back and forth where he doesn't really have the resources to kill you. He just has the resources to pass check, which is a very weird distinction to make, right? But it's like the Earth Kirishima 3s I've seen, if they're not drawing Texas Smash, they're not even threatening me, right? Discarding way too many cards to cards like Snack Time, which I'm a big fan of, but that can't be your only game plan. So I thought that having the Hardened Blitz as a focal point would be really, really nice, but you have to make it, you absolutely have to make it count because you're not playing 3 of these in a turn. If things are going right, you know, if we're in the super mega dumpster late game, maybe, but that still would not be a great way to get the speed. So the main thing is you have to be destroying foundations throughout the turn. So resets that destroy, like You're So Obvious, is really cool. Pull No Punches is actually really nice for this. The one bad thing about playing this deck is it is kind of annoying to book. Even though, like, even if I don't have a Hardened Blitz in hand, I want to keep track of all these things to bluff my opponent that I do. So I'm really not a fan of that. I hate the idea that I could be at a tournament and I don't want to tip off to my opponent that I have a Hardened Blitz. I'm not making a big show or using a die or writing down notes, because your opponent would get to see your notes and they can't be in. So you have to tell them what it is, you know, what you're taking notes of. But I hate the idea that I could get into a dispute over how many foundations were destroyed this turn you know, especially if I'm brute strengthing on attacks that get blocked. So that is something to keep in mind is if you're really trying to go all out, you have to be consistent. And you do have to kind of keep notes on all the cards you just, so that way you don't end up in disputes. So it's a weird, you know, it's something that won't come up at your locals, sure. And hopefully you guys can just, you know, resolve it like gentlemen, human beings, solve it like people. But so yeah, it's kind of annoying, but yeah, so pull no punches, you know, not everything's a punch, but it basically is. And a fury, right? So fury does not count. Hardened Blitz being charge, fury, slam does not count for pull no punches, and hardened frenzy being a fury kick does. Everything else good to go for the deadlock, so we got to include some of that. Learning to harden, that's the easiest for along with red riot's the coolest. You know, it increases our hardened blitz count because it's every card with hardened or red in the name. And then yeah, other than that, we've got web of blades because again, we're the thing that Kirishima 3 struggles with is he's not an earth deck that's just grabbing stats out of nowhere. All the earth decks that have been super duper popular have pretty much put a plethora of stats or resource management while having like an insanely good defensive ability. Kirishima 3 is kind of in the middle on all that. I think that focusing on having a obnoxious game plan, i.e. 0 mids, a deck that punishes partials, is going to be, and it's also really good into a world where, you know, we want to be solving Mirio, right? This is specifically, I think, a good build for people who are playing Cooperation Offer, Faith Shield. You probably actually, if you take this to a tournament, the sideboard is mostly just, you know, more of the same. Red Guard is more Faith Shields and counts for Blitz, and is also not a punch as well. But this is more of the same. If you're really going to go to a tournament, having Red Right Unbreakable for those symbols could be really nice. But yeah, like the evaded copies of the world, basically the life symbol decks of the world, I think having no mids, pretty good. Focusing on punishing the opponent when they do want to block with a breaker. If they want to use barrier shield into a breaker too, you're gonna still burn and take half. Gonna get probably almost no damage reduction out of that. They're just gonna be doing it for the breaker, and that doesn't feel too bad. I don't hate that trade-off. Other than that, there's nothing really spicy about Earth Foundations. They're just really solid quality. Having the 50 cards, while you do kind of hate to lose your discard pile, I think it's very important that you capitalize early. Very, very important that you jump on your opponent, make that resource game work for you. Right? Make it so that when you lose a foundation, you are putting a halt to their turn, essentially. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this character. I picked Hardened Blitz. Let me know what you guys think. Is it crazy not to just be playing typical Earth punches? How much does this deck need Back Alley Haymaker? Let me know down in the comments below.